Honestly, this is one of the best what ifs I've ever read. It really managed to move me, just like the last what if that took place in the Wallachia storyline. Though coincidentally, people started saying the same thing they said back then, that these what ifs are better than the ending of the original arc. I have my own thoughts on that, but I'll save them for the end. For now, let's just do the intro. I hope you guys understand, but this is an interesting episode, so don't expect a long intro. Welcome to the Sasageru If, or rather, what would have happened if Aldebaran won? I think it's interesting to discuss all the lore about what will happen to the world in 400 years. We are told that only two nations remain. We don't know how, but Kararagi and Lugunica have been destroyed. I've seen some theorize that Kararagi was destroyed by Zarestia, but Zarestia isn't truly an evil entity. Obviously, if you provoke or bother her, she will kill you, but it's not like she kills just because she feels like it and decides to wipe out a nation out of nowhere. Furthermore, I don't know if you guys know this, but right now a novel about her and Anna is being published. And while I can't go into details at the moment, we are told that Anastasia has managed to calm her down and is even negotiating with her so she doesn't destroy the city. I don't want to get into the details because this negotiation hasn't finished yet, and it's a novel that's beside the point. Just keep in mind that I highly doubt Zarestia was the one who ended the city of Kararagi. If you ask me, I think the city simply collapsed sometime after the death of the Great Spirit. I imagine the power vacuum she left behind was massive, and Kararagi had no choice but to surrender and be absorbed by the Empire. The other major revelation was that the kingdom of Lugunica disappeared. Let me clarify that it doesn't state exactly what happened, but it's implied that its disappearance occurred at the exact same time as the witch cults, which makes you wonder, what exactly happened that, in exchange for defeating the witch cult, the kingdom disappeared? I imagine that, as always, Reinhard arrived late. He defeated the archbishops, but the damage was already done. Damage from which the kingdom was never going to recover. Though what angers me the most is not knowing exactly what happened for Aldebaran to win in this timeline. All we know is that Aldebaran threw the sphere containing Subaru into the geyser, and the geyser sent him to the other side of the world. Which reminds me, remember when we used to say the geyser was going to send Subaru back to his home world? Well, nope, there was just water, and according to Beatrice, the other side of the geyser is like an immense mana reservoir. So for 400 years, they were searching for the tiny sphere in that massive reservoir. It seems the author has truly sealed off all options for Subaru to return to his world. Another thing I love that was explained in detail is how the things Petra sacrificed actually work. I mean, when Petra sacrificed possibilities for her future, what she was actually doing was stripping herself of the ability to feel the things she discarded. In other words, if she sacrificed the option to hug someone, when the time comes, her body simply won't be able to perform that action no matter how much she wants to. Furthermore, it won't even cross her mind to do it, and the same goes for every single thing she sacrificed. Something else I also would have liked to know a bit more about is the fate of Subaru's companions. Don't get me wrong, I know they're all dead by now, but we know Otto had descendants. I'm curious to know who the person he started a family with was. I have a candidate in mind, but that's it, just a candidate. Another huge mystery is knowing what happened to Roswal. You'd expect him to still be alive thanks to his soul transfer rituals. But I have faint memories of him saying he would get what he wanted in this life, and it seems he stuck to that until the very end. But without a doubt, the one I feel the most sorry for is Rem. Fortunately, we know a little bit about her. We know she convinced Vincent to help her with a future plan, a plan that ended up freeing Subaru. But even so, we have to remember that the Rem from this timeline was a Rem who got her memories back, and it breaks my heart knowing she spent her entire life regretting not being able to try hard enough to save Subaru. Now that I think about it, I think I'm a bit disappointed in Ram and Roswal. If Otto and Rem did something to help Subaru in the future, it wouldn't have cost them anything to leave descendants and entrust them with a role to help the protagonist. Although I imagine they couldn't pull it off for some reason we don't know, a reason that perhaps had to do with the destruction of the kingdom. By the way, I don't know if the author forgot or if there just wasn't an opportunity to tell it, but it shocked me that Liliana didn't keep her promise to make a song about Natsuki Subaru's feats. I want to believe the author just forgot to mention it, just like I would have easily believed that Reinhard was still alive. I mean, Reinhard is someone who defies all logic, but it seems aging is something not even he can avoid. I also think another reason I enjoyed this story so much was because I read the recent novel that came out about the Empire. In case you don't know, we still know what happens in the Empire because the author keeps publishing novels about it, and in the latest issue, interesting things were revealed regarding Medium, Vincent, and the government system. It's because of how things are going in that novel that I see Rosalind, Vincent, and Medium's descendant in a different light. It's said that Rosalind is someone who talks like Beatrice, and that, according to Subaru, looks a lot like Medium when she was turned into a child by Olbart. Though, of course, she's a little girl with Vincent's personality, though she might be better than him, since while the original emperor had to deal with managing the Wallachia of 400 years ago, Rosalind deals with the unified management of Kararagi, Lugunica, and Wallachia. An interesting fact about her is that it seems she heavily yearns for the events that took place 400 years ago. That is, the events that happened during the time Subaru was sealed. It's said she's a fan of Caecilius, and that she absolutely loved the legend told about the Sparca that took place in Volume 31. I really love that trait of Rosalind's, because that habit of being fascinated by collective stories is a habit that both Vincent and Priscilla also share. In fact, in one novel it's told how Cisha is tasked with giving Priscilla a gift, and what he chooses is precisely a storybook. This ended up being a gift the Sun Princess liked so much that eventually she acquired more storybooks on her own. But another descendant, so to speak, is Rumila. Honestly, the author is a genius because he had already spoiled Rumila for us many years ago. You see, back in 2020, the author had already left the door open for that spirit to obtain a human form. He says that in that form, she would be the type of person who works a lot. A fun fact the story doesn't mention, but is interesting to point out, is that when spirits level up, they can choose a form to materialize in. Some choose to stay in their current state, and others choose a different form. Beatrice and Puck don't count because they were made that way, but Rumila purposely chose that human form, and she did it as proof of the time she spent by Julius's side. In fact, it's said that even though 400 years have passed, she and her sisters have been looking after the territory that used to belong to Julius's family. I think choosing Rumila as Subaru's companion upon waking up was the right call, and that's because Rumila had already interacted with Subaru in Season 1, and it kind of creates a little history between them. Though I have to admit, it strikes me as really odd that Julius didn't leave any descendants behind to help Subaru when he woke up. Although, in their place, he left Rumila and her sisters, and that's already a huge help. Also, a special shout out to Madeline and Arakaya, who, due to their constitution, are still alive 4 centuries later. It seems Madeline has finally learned to behave more like a human because she no longer has those mannerisms she had in the Empire. And as for Arakia, I love that deep down, she actually appreciated Cecilus. In case you don't know, Arakia and Cecilus were like 2 siblings who fought a lot but deep down loved each other. They were kind of like Bart and Lisa from the early seasons of The Simpsons. And seeing that, when Arakia realizes the Mad Prince has a weapon Cecilus would have loved to own, she decides right then and there to steal the swords from him and leave them at her old friend's grave. But speaking of the Mad Prince, I knew the Mad Prince was strong, but I didn't know he was that strong. The most curious part is that the description given of him today looks nothing like the original description we already had. You see, a few years ago at a fan convention, Tappei answered some questions about him, and among them, he mentioned the prince's appearance. Back then he said he had white hair and other features, but this new alternate story gives us completely different traits. Sure, there's always the option that the author just forgot, but then we have Tappei weaving old lore with recent revelations that genuinely make me doubt whether it was a mistake or on purpose. My personal theory is that the Mad Prince's original appearance changed, and maybe with that change came most of his powers. Long story short, the Mad Prince's protections work and synchronize in such a way that it's suspicious not to believe there was something or someone behind him. I don't want to go into detail about his powers, but basically, he has a divine protection that allows him to adapt to everything. He has the divine protection of repetition, which allows him to vastly improve his movements in a short amount of time. He also has the divine protection of solitude, which, as you can guess, makes him stronger the more alone he is. And finally, he has a divine protection that activates at the moment of his death. But since the Mad Prince is a human-spirit hybrid, this power is completely broken due to the unique constitution of his body, so it's active at all times, boosting his already monstrous strength even further. And as if that weren't enough, it's said that at a certain point they managed to deal him a lethal blow, one that would end his life because of his spirit side. But the prince is so broken that he's capable of switching to his human body or his spirit body at will. Why is switching bodies so useful? You see, spirits can die if part of their core is damaged, because then the mana of their being starts leaking out until they disappear. In fact, Puck almost died like that once. And Beatrice too, in an erased world, died that way. But because the Mad Prince is half human and half spirit, he can switch to his flesh body whenever he wants, and that way, avoid lethal blows. Honestly, I'm really curious to confirm some thoughts I have. I think the Mad Prince is an experiment by Oddglass. If you don't know who Oddglass is, it's the spirit that rules the nation of Gusteko and is someone as powerful and well-known as Puck. On top of that, Oddglass is known as the benevolent mother of that nation, so it's not crazy to consider that Oddglass created the Mad Prince and made him extremely strong on purpose, but made him so strong that he got out of control. Personally, I feel like that theory is missing something, and that's because I highly doubt that, with all the knowledge Oddglass might have, it compares to Echidna's knowledge. I don't mean to say that Echidna ended up involved in the creation of the Mad Prince because the math simply doesn't add up. The prince was already alive when Echidna was still locked in the sanctuary, but Echidna was around sometime after his birth. We know that Echidna, 2 months after the second season, was in Gusteko with her group of travelers, so it's not crazy to believe that the Witch of Greed ended up upgrading the product that was the Mad Prince. I know this is hard to believe because we know Gusteko has a strict anti-witch policy, but Echidna herself admits she could destroy the nation if she wanted to. And no matter how many anti-witch policies the place has, that wouldn't really stop Echidna from doing whatever she wants to do. Well, I know Colette and Palmyra could prevent it because they became her friends, but that's another story that maybe I'll tell on the channel someday. A story I'd tell after EX1 and after resuming the cut content videos. I know some of you are wondering if Subaru managed to beat him in the end with the help of his allies, and my answer is yes. I mean, if his inferior version, which is Aldebaran, managed to find weaknesses in Reinhardt's many protections, Subaru can surely find the Mad Prince's weak points as well. But let's move on to the protagonists of this story. Honestly, I really liked the problems and crises this branching path caused for the protagonist. It narrates how down he felt for having woken up 400 years later and how much he missed his friends. All this happens while he finds out about everything his friends left prepared to help him in the future. Subaru felt grateful that his friends had thought so much about him, but continuing to learn about the things they left prepared only sank him deeper into depression. Fortunately, finding out that Petra was still alive gave him the strength to help her. Subaru's logic was that his friends didn't just set up all these details for him, but they also did it so that in the future, he would be the one to save Petra from the burden she placed upon herself. Fortunately, Subaru was able to see this, and he used that to pull himself out of his depression and save the now-adult Petra. As for Petra, it's said she forgot many things but remained attached to the place she was supposed to guard. The most interesting part is that, despite everything she forgot, there were certain lines she made sure never to cross. Lines like murder, for example. In fact, she was so mentally screwed up that she wasn't even able to recognize Subaru when she saw him again. In the end, Subaru managed to make her remember things and get her on his side. But what I want to talk about the most are the implications behind Subaru making her remember things she had forgotten due to the sacrifices she made by using the power of the authority. You see, it's always talked about how the Odd Laguna is some kind of entity that regulates the isekai world. And what you do when you sacrifice something of yours in exchange for using an authority, what you're actually sacrificing is the possibility of doing that in the future. And that kind of makes sense. The system grants you a great temporary power in exchange for closing off these possibilities for you in the future. But the system isn't perfect. If it were, authorities wouldn't be breaking its rules all the time. And just as divine protections can have glitches that manifest in cases like the Mad Prince, I also believe it's possible that, with a lot of patience and persistence, a person can lift those restrictions. It seems Subaru realized this, and I'll explain how and why, but before that, just a reminder that I read a translated version of the novel, so my reading comprehension might not have been the best. But getting back on track, it narrates that whenever someone tried to say the witch's name, the words wouldn't come out of their mouths, and if they stopped thinking about her, they ran the risk of forgetting her. Because of that, the solution Subaru found was to dedicate a part of his brain to actively thinking about her. And by the end of the novel, he managed to pronounce a part of her name without the system getting in the way. That leads me to believe that the sacrifices Petra made can be, in a way, reversed. But it takes a ton of effort to do so. Let's remember that Subaru spent years remembering Petra in his mind. But by far, the most interesting thing is the overall implications of this what if. You see, in the Emilia movie, there was a character who said some interesting words. I don't remember the exact quote, but it implied that the events of the world constantly repeat themselves. 400 years before episode 1, there was a witch who absorbed a gene she was incompatible with and made a place her lair. And now, 400 years after that same episode 1, we find out that a witch appeared who did the exact same thing. But, at least now, we know this witch did it for Subaru. Could it be that Satella, back in her day, also did it for the same boy? I'm aware that if we nitpick, we'll find differences. Differences like the fact that Petra wasn't trying to destroy the world, unlike the Witch of Envy who destroyed a large part of it, leaving only the current world. But the parallelism is undeniable, and I think we should be on the lookout to see what other parallels might align with the original catastrophe. I was going to end the video here, but I think I'll dedicate this last section to answering certain questions, or rather than answering, speculating on how certain things played out. Keep in mind that the author himself is aware he hasn't revealed the exact circumstances of how things ended up like this. He says so on the last page, and if not even he bothered to reveal what went wrong, don't expect me to have the answer. Regarding Julius, I believe he and Anastasia managed to solve the Kararagi problem. Then they returned to Lugunica, where they found out what happened. Julius made the preparations that would eventually help Subaru in the future. And after that, the witch cult attacked the kingdom, where Julius would ultimately perish. Regarding Capella, because of the disasters Aldebaran caused, Capella couldn't carry out the plan we are currently seeing unfold in Arc 10, so she hit pause temporarily. And when she came up with a new plan, she attacked the kingdom along with the rest of the cult. She would die here, but in exchange, she would destroy the kingdom. This would connect with the statement that the kingdom fell alongside the cult. Regarding Roswal, he died believing Subaru could redo things. Remember that Roswal knows he has a form, but he doesn't know the limits of this power. So surely he didn't see the need to reincarnate thinking Subaru would return the world to its original state. Regarding Reinhard, honestly, if they told me Reinhard was still alive fighting against the witch, I would have believed it. And at no point is it mentioned whether he had descendants. That could mean the Astrias died out in his generation. Or, more logically, the author simply didn't want to say anything about him because he plans to cover him in the current plotline of the light novel, a plot that will involve the Astrias once again. Personally, I think he arrived late to where Aldebaran was, which is why he couldn't stop him from tossing Subaru beyond the confines of the world. After his death, the kingdom would be attacked and wiped out. Regarding Aldebaran, we don't know at what point Aldebaran won, so the variable that gave him the victory might have been something that happened at the end of Arc 9 or something that happened at the beginning of it. If he won due to a different variable, then maybe the scene where Roy devours Petra's persona simply never happened. And while he said he committed this whole betrayal to prevent the witch's rebirth, let's remember this is a what if, a story that doesn't necessarily stick to the canon at all times. I think this because in this story, in the end, even with his victory, Subaru returned and the witch is still active. I'm going to find it hilarious when they wake him up and he has to face the strongest people in the world who will be accompanying Subaru. Regarding Petra, something I think is safe to say is that in this timeline, she wasn't devoured by Roy. But if she wasn't devoured by him, how is it that the symbols appear in the text? Those symbols that represent the void left by gluttony. The answer to that is simple. Those symbols appear once memories of certain events are ripped away from the world. So Petra, theoretically, could have achieved the same result or a similar result through this method. The method of being able to use the power of her authority in exchange for no one else being able to call her by her name. Regarding Amelia, she froze everything the moment Aldebaran threw Subaru into the geyser. The traitor, having already achieved his goal, didn't even bother to stop her. And before I forget, I understand the hype this IF can generate. But to go as far as saying you prefer this over Arc 10, an arc that has been building up and connecting all the subplots the story has developed over these 14 years of its lifespan. Well, I think that's being a bit narrow-minded, to be honest. I see this what if as a unique dessert that goes alongside the main story, which is a much more delicious and nutritious main course, but there's no way I would choose the dessert over the main dish. But that's all for now. Sorry for the delay, but I did a 4-hour stream reading the episode, which is why it took me longer than usual. I hope you enjoyed my impressions, and if not, don't worry. I'll be uploading more videos soon for you to enjoy. And of course, I'll be resuming the Cut Content series alongside the 4th season that premieres in a few days.